So we're picking up the story in verse 5 here of chapter 1, and Luke's always very careful to give you historical reference point, like when Herod was king of Judea. And it's the story of Zechariah, who was from a priestly family, and so was his wife, descendant of Aaron. And, I thought about this. I thought, here's, if you know anything about the Levites, when Israel settled the land back 1300 years previously, the Levites were one tribe that weren't given any land. They were scattered right through Israel, and they had to live in all the little towns and villages. And their job was to teach the people their story. They were the historians, they were the storytellers, they were the singers, strummed their harps, and they taught Israel its story, reminded them of their story, embedded the story in their thinking. So for, nearly 1200 years, these priests have been doing this job, sometimes not so well, but nevertheless, that was their responsibility. And empires had come and gone, Syrians and Babylonians and Persians and Greeks and now the Romans. And these priests have been steadily going through the rituals, and here's Zechariah, he's doing it again. And so 20 generations probably had gone by, and going through the business of daily sacrifice and singing psalms and hymns and so on, and pleading with Yahweh, their God, that he'd make them rulers of the earth. And so they kept this passion alive in people's thinking. It was the heartbeat of the nation. And so this record of 1,000 years of routine, the Romans watching from next door, because their fortress looked down into the temple, they must have shaken their heads at these Jews. What are they? They're talking to this God of theirs. He doesn't seem to have done them much good. And generations have come and gone. They've been under the heel of, empire after empire. And here they are still praying, going through the rituals. What's this going to take, another millennium or two for this prayer to be answered? And I guess none of those Roman soldiers swaggering around the courtyard there, or even the pious Jewish worshippers, could have dreamed that day as that little old priest came in he was in the back country and he'd won the lottery to go and do his bit in the temple, because they got a turn. And so it was a big thing, he's there to be the priest and take the offerings into the holiest place. They couldn't have guessed this day that little old Zechariah coming in from out in the bush, just another priest, that something was going to happen that day that had cosmic significance. And all those prayers, has God been interested? Has he been listening? Has he forgotten them? Has he kind of gone to sleep out there? Well, the answer's right here, I think, in what Luke shows us in this little bit of the story, because on this particular day, poor old Zacharias is in there doing the ritual and probably feeling quite important. Suddenly, not only the prayers of the people that he was ministering to there in the temple, but the private prayers of his wife Elizabeth and he. They're old and they've been praying all these years for a child, and suddenly appears this great angel in front of him. Gabriel appears. Now, the Bible's full of angels. I was reading this book of Greg Sheridan's that I mentioned last time. He's got a whole chapter in there, and he's saying, we tend to sort of ignore angels a little bit, but the Bible's actually full of stories where angels intervene, and their job seems to be particularly to stand between us and the Father in heaven and relay messages and reassurances, and also act on our behalf to sort of look after us. Jesus called them our guardian. And it's interesting, as Greg Sheridan says, that all around the world people might have sort of stopped wanting to practice religion or go to church, but they do believe in angels. They'll talk about angels. And they have this extraordinary responsibility there around us. There's a myriad of them, and they seem to have this particular responsibility to hear not just to hear our prayers, but they're the ones who are sent to somehow minister answers to our prayers. I had one incident I can think of when I'm sure it was angelic, and it's a bit of a grim story, I won't go into it, but there was a girl who had demonic problems. I was on the edge of Bourke waiting for her to come into town. She'd run away with the car. I was sitting there waiting, wondering, what am I going to do? I'm praying. She went past in the dark, and I circled around behind her and pulled up alongside her, and I was able to get her to pull over, and I was able to help her. Years later, when I asked her, "Did you see me sitting on the edge of town that night?" She said, "Oh yes." She said, "I heard two voices in my head. One voice said, 'Drive into him and kill him.' The other voice said, 'Stop, he's going to help you.'" Well, when I thought about that, I was a bit startled, but I realised I think that was my guardian angel sort of speaking into her life and saying, "Don't do it," giving her a chance to choose. Well, I'm glad she chose the right way. But it makes you realise that here's this little old couple, they've been praying steadily for years, hoping that somehow their prayer would be answered, and suddenly there he is, And the beautiful thing about the story is, as you read it there, was poor old Zacharias is shocked. That it's so real for him. But the beauty of the story, it seems to me, is that they aren't just pawns in the game, Elizabeth and Zachariah. God loves them, and he wants to answer their prayer. And their prayers hadn't gone unnoticed, and somehow God connected their little prayer to something that was going to be as big as Israel, and all the prayers that had gone before, they were longing for the Messiah to come. Suddenly, there's a spark, and it's happening. So they're not just pawns in some game, but they are key players, even though they're just ordinary folk in some ways, that even the ordinariest person can suddenly find themselves thrust into the middle of events that are bigger than they can orchestrate. And the fact that he calls them by name, he talks about, the angel says Zachariah, and he talks about Elizabeth, and the name is chosen, John, so there's a kind of it shows you the heart of heaven. Gabriel's bringing to this little couple is a warmth in it. There's a care, and somehow God sees their lives as mattering in the big scheme of things. And sometimes we can forget, can't we, that the small things we do, we seem like it's not very consequential what we do. But that's different with God. He hears our prayers, and he's answering them in ways we may not expect. And so he's opening his heart to them in their need, and somehow they're caught up in the real family business, the business of Israel, the very promise that God had given to Abraham that, one of your sons, one of your children is going to bless the whole world. And this was near 0 hour, because this boy, this John that they were being gifted, this boy was going to be the forerunner. Well, the angel talks about you'll be filled with joy. I like that, don't you? C.S. Lewis said, "Joy is the serious business of heaven." And there's an old psalm that says, "In God's presence is fullness of joy." And it's like this messenger arriving to talk to Zacharias. It's like some of the joy of heaven is spilled over into their lives, and it's going to spill over into the world in a way that we couldn't even begin to imagine. The delight of the Father's heart, the gift of a son to a childless couple. It's happened before in the Old Testament. Well, John wasn't. They were given strict instructions about him. He was not to touch alcohol. It wasn't that he was going to be a wowser, but somehow he had to be a man focused on the job. And like anybody who's disciplined to lead, sometimes they have to set some things aside. So that seems to be the reason why he's given. So he's an elite athlete in training, if you like, and he's got to train himself, and this strict regime that he was given was going to prepare him for this very, very significant job he was going to have to do. The other thing about that, this strikes me too, even though there was an overflow of joy, that joy comes at a price, like Elijah. It said he's going to be like Elijah. Well, there was loneliness for Elijah. He felt, he was the only one. You remember he's saying, I'm the only one left. And there's loneliness, there's rejection and doubt. Elijah experienced that. John would experience this too. He'd have to step out of the limelight and give the glory to his cousin, Jesus. Imprisonment, martyrdom, all for his courageous stand against corruption. And so carving out this platform for the Messiah was a big thing. It was going to be a joyous thing, but it was going to be a costly thing as well. And single-handedly, John was going to carve out a platform to announce the Messiah. And very few people in history have had that chance to call a whole nation to righteousness, jar a whole nation awake, to blow the trumpet, to signal a great event. John Wesley, Martin Luther King, Martin Luther, Patrick, John Huss, those kind of people. But they all suffered too. But many rejoiced at their message. So joy is a precious, but it's a dangerous gift. On the night he was betrayed, Jesus said to his disciples, you're gonna weep, but joy will come, and it'll be like a woman giving birth to a child. There'll be sort of the agony of childbirth, but joy will come, explode with the birth of the child. And now you're going to miss me, you're going to sort of feel grief, but when the day comes, you'll be so full of joy. You'll be able to ask the Father anything in my name, he said, and ask and you'll receive, and your joy will be complete. So the back of this announcement is this: the joy of heaven is there. That's the reality. That's the kind of thing that's going to last. There'll be pain, there'll be difficulty, there'll be cost, but in the end, there'll be an overflow of joy. So there's the announcement to this priest tucked away there. So 1800 years have passed, 1700 since Jacob had predicted a ruler would come from Judah's clan, 1,000 since David was promised that he would have a son that would be on an eternal throne, 700 since Isaiah predicted a virgin would conceive, 400 since Malachi predicted he'd be born in Bethlehem. Sorry, Micah, I think. Did I say Micah? Yeah. And Israel, among all the nations that had come and gone, still had this single-minded belief, conviction that somehow God was going to work a miracle, going to use them for an amazing purpose. And it's all coming together in this moment as the angel talks to Zechariah and says, you're going to have a son, you and Elizabeth. And it's interesting, isn't it? God's content to work with the ebbs and flows and what looks pretty ordinary, and things seem to submerge and then rise again. But God's patiently working out and bringing people into the picture, and he's a very skilled author. He knows what he's doing, and he's got a grand scheme in mind, and the characters in each episode have got to play their part. And we've got to be content to let God's timing work out. And as he shapes his larger story, we've got to play our part, and then we might have to step off the stage and the next person steps on. So Elijah had played a big part 700 years before. Zacharias told his son's going to do the same. Only that once he's done his job, the main character is going to step out of the wings onto the stage. So a new climax will be reached. So John was going to stir the nation, and he did. Josephus, the historian, said he had a huge following right across Israel and beyond. And the bottom line here was, well, I think the message went something like, you'll have to, that he'll go out before the Lord in the spirit and the power of Elijah, turn the hearts of parents to their children. So it's kind of calling the nation back to remember and teach their children, and going to call the disobedient to do what's wise, what the tradition of Israel had passed on to them. So they've got to humble themselves and get ready. There's a moment of preparation. So that's how Luke opens his gospel. That's how the story, he's setting the scene for the main character to step on. But you can sense the sort of interest in if you're a story writer, he's begun the story with a really interesting moment and an expectation rising. What's going to happen? Who is this person that's going to come? So you can imagine his readers and his hearers going, wow, this is a great story. What's happening? Theophilus sitting there saying, wow, this is interesting. Who will this character be? Well, I think Luke's a good storyteller, don't you? And we'll pick up his story a little bit later.